Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel for another very special Payday 3 interview, because it took me about 5 years to get him the first time, but this time it took about 24 hours to pull this together, which was quite the turnaround. But we have another interview with Starbreeze's Global Brand Director, Mr. Almir Listo. Thank you very much for joining us again, sir.
Thank you, Troy, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to talk about Payday.
Yeah, it's pleasure to have you, and also to quickly snowball this from what it was. I only reached out for a comment after last week, which we'll get into, and then you very quickly and kindly suggested an interview, which I'm very grateful for, so thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
So I want to start off, we've got a lot of questions to get through, and for context, we're recording this right before Almir's Tuesday Play with Almir stream, so we're running to the clock, so I want to get straight into it, and I want to talk first off, how are things just generally as a warm-up for you and people in the studio right now, as a bit of a temperature check? What's the vibe like at Starbreeze?
The vibe is that we can feel that we are in the start of the comeback. I mean, Boys in Blue was really the defining moment for us, given the fact that we hadn't released a new heist since December, instead focusing on Operation Medic Bag that we announced earlier in the year. So it feels really good right now. Obviously, you know, the team have been working super hard, and some of them are on vacation, something that's going on during this period of the year, especially in Sweden, where most people tend to be off during July, August. But yeah, I'd say it's all up to us right now. That's what I feel. The community is here. They will judge us for the content that we put out. That's the key thing, really. So it's up to us to deliver on that content. But we have been cooking, and I'm super excited to share more details about it when we can.
Yeah, it sounds good. We can touch on some stuff to do the roadmap shortly, yeah. I think what also might be a good thing to do is just as a retrospective before we focus on the now, just to talk about the launch, because I know there's been discussions about it on live streams and things, but can I just get your 2 cents on how Payday 3 launched and how things have changed since then from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, those of you in the Payday community who were with us for launch, it was a shit show. It was terrible the way things went out, right? And I think it's super important that the Payday community understands and realizes that we are aware, right? We were here. We had to deal with it. We had to deal with all the rage from the community. The community was in the right to feel what they felt, to say what they said, to behave the way they behaved. I completely get behind that and understand that. We did our best to mitigate that situation. It was a lot of challenges at once. You know, you launch a game that you've been working on tirelessly for the past years, and you just trip on the finish line. It felt like for us, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we want the Payday community to be happy. We want everyone to be happy heisters. And while we thought Payday 3 at launch had some good bits, there was obviously a lot of things that the community criticized us for. Things that we then, as part of Operation Medic Bag, tried our best to start amending. And I think now, a few updates in, we are starting to see the response from the community. Because I think in this day and age of making games, communities don't necessarily expect the game developers to listen. But I want to make it clear, if I haven't already with the team the past decade, we are a team that listen. We are a team that care. This dev team loves Payday in and out, and we will do our best in the coming months to make sure that you feel that we are doing that too.
That sounds good. So definitely there's been, I mean, you only see so much of the picture from things like Steam charts, which I know people quote at you all the time, but from that alone, it does seem that there's a bit of an upward progression at the minute. Are things going as much as you can say publicly? Are things improving as you would have hoped they would?
Absolutely. I mean, look at, I reference Boys in Blue, right? But it's because it's the latest update we did, but also because it's a paid DLC. We did some few free content there as well, though, like the Clover and a few weapons and so on. But ultimately, and this is why I love the Payday community, we could have been in a place where they would have gone, no, how dare you release paid DLC? But the community understands that we have Silver Edition owners, we have Gold Edition owners who are entitled to the DLCs that they bought into, right? And we have to deliver those within the first year. So that's what we're looking to do. And I think seeing positive reviews on the DLC, Boys in Blue, really lifted the dev team's spirit, because it's been a very difficult and challenging past 10 months, right? Especially launch. I mean, you remember, Troy, you were there. Launch, the months after, the delayed patches, us, trying to get up on our feet, making sure that we can deliver on the content that we know the Payday community wants and love. But I think with Boys in Blue, the community really showed that as long as we do good content, they'll be here for it.
Absolutely, it's definitely the strongest update Payday 3 has had, in my opinion, and I'm glad that that's helped with morale, because it shows that you guys can still put out good content. Granted, it took us a while to get there, but it came, and it's good, at least. Yeah, I would say so. So it's really well done to the team for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the main reason that I brought you here, and this is a one thing where I really want to hand the mic to you and just give you a chance to talk over it again, but last week, as you would say, you were there, you made a bit of a statement on your official Payday stream talking about being a true heister and the fact that you should be playing Payday 3 now if you want the game to survive. It's had a lot of feedback, both positive and negative, people who understand you, people who think that it was unfair to say what you've said. I just want to first off hand the mic to you to just kind of reiterate what you said, and if there's anything you want to clarify from that statement. So the floor is yours for that first.
Appreciate that, Tori. And I'd like to correct you there, or rather use what you said just now as an example. So I said a specific thing Thursday, right? That has since been interpreted and in different ways. Mm-hmm. Something I, of course, have to reflect on, because when I say stuff, the Payday community listens. But I didn't say if you want Payday 3 to survive, you have to play it, right? What I said was, if you like what we're cooking, support us. And how you define support, for me, can be as much as writing a negative comment on a Nolu video or a Troy video, Red Archer video. That, to me, is participating in the community. As long as it's, valid criticism, where you're trying to be civilized, I read all of the negative stuff too, right? And I also think this is a thing that the community has misunderstood me in. It's not like we are trying to censor opinions, that we just want to create, a mindless army of followers. It's the absolute opposite. My call to action last Thursday was all about the Payday community together with us discussing what does it mean to support a game, to support a game studio, right? Because if everyone stops playing straight away, then we might as well go and look to do something else. Start baking toast or something,
Of
but
course he'd say toast.
if you like what we're cooking, support us. It can be through buying DLCs if you have the means for that. But you might, and this is individual for every community member out there, you might be in a place where you go, listen, there are 5 critical things for me that the Payday 3 needs to address before I'm interested. I think that's fine. Let us know what those things are. You can still participate in the community without buying into it. You know what I mean? What I don't like is when community members who've been with us for maybe sometimes 5 years, 10 years, just eject themselves completely from the world of Payday because we flopped at launch, right? Because we had such a terrible launch. I get that they did, but if we do a Boys in Blue update, if the next DLC, the next updates we do, the free heists, the new characters, all of this cool stuff, right? If that is received positively, I urge those players to give us a shot, whether that is them jumping into the game, buying the game for the first time, or just letting us know in a tweet, in a comment to a Red Archer video, whatever, that, this looks promising. I'm not there yet personally, but you're on the right path. That means the world to us as developers, right? And I don't like the idea that you completely discard us if you are a Payday fan, because we are also Payday fans, and that's where we and the Payday community meet each other, right? We love this game series as much as you do, and vice versa, right? We want the best for it. And I would never have made that statement 5 months ago, but I made it after Boys in Blue, because Boys in Blue was the first time where we as a team could show you that we can produce awesome content for Payday 3. But we need you to be there to enjoy it with us. And I think, given what I'm saying right now, I think that's completely sensible. I think it makes sense to a lot of the community when they hear that. What I felt happened last Thursday when we spoke on this was that the ensuing discussion was very much negative, because people perceived what I said as me trying to guilt trip the Payday community into a certain behavior, which is absolutely not the case. It's not true. I want and I love when the Payday community is honest, truthful, when they give us good stuff when we do good stuff, and they give us the shit when we do bad stuff, right? This, to me, is a beautiful relationship. But I implore the Payday community to also understand that we are cooking now. Boys in Blue got positive reviews. That is a cause for celebration and a cause for reflection, I think, among us in the Payday community. Because the community is not a static thing written in stone. The community is who we are, who are actively participating in enjoying Payday. And right now, we are focusing on Payday 3. We want to do that for the upcoming years, but we can only do that with the support of the community. I hope this clarifies things. Either way, we are right now doing exactly what I want us to do, which is talking about Payday. If I offended anyone by what I said, I apologize. That was not my intent. My intent was a call to action, and I said a few words, but in summary, what I ended up saying was, if you like what we're cooking, support us. And I think that's something that everyone in the Payday community can get behind. If you can't get behind that, that's fine too. Let us know why. And I'm sure that we'll get to that comment, because there are so many different comments about Payday. I know Noli's latest video got 1,000 comments. Your videos are, Troy, always get a lot of comments as well. I do my best personally to read all of it, to watch the videos. I know people in the team do too. But understand that the call to action is also a moment of reflection for all of us in the Payday community. What are we doing here together? What are we trying to build here together? I know I'm off on a, not off on a tangent, but I'm making this into a long form speech, right? But this is so important for me, for the studio, and for the game and its community. We actively create the atmosphere that we want in the Payday community. And what you and I are doing right now, Troy, I love this kind of stuff. I love this kind of openness between us and the community. You being able to reach out to me, us having this talk like we do now, talking about something, a subject matter that is very important to the community. So I think we are going in the right direction. In no shape or form are we there yet, but Boys in Blue was the start of the comeback. And you know as well as me, Troy, being a part of the journey is as important as reaching our destination. And I just don't want to be in a place where 3 years down the line, where you and me have been having fun with the rest of the Payday community, with the future upcoming content of Payday 3, the highs and lows of that progress that we're going to make in the coming months and years together. I don't want there to be players who in 3 years' time go, oh, I'm sorry I missed out on that. You know, now is the time to be a part of that, because being here now will make all of the stuff that we accomplish together so much sweeter when we get there eventually together. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Absolutely, yeah. And I had about 2 or 3 follow-up questions, but I feel like you've covered everything there. You really covered all the angles. So I appreciate that purely for runtime, because I was going to ask from the devil's advocate perspective, people who aren't yet on board, and you've covered it. So thank you very much for clarifying that.
Thank you, and I also hope like we're also like at a point with the community like where either we can go a corporate route, where we're anonymous, we're talking through press releases or whatever, or we have this thing, where I can be a representative of our team. We can have a one-to-one like this. Sometimes I will say stupid stuff. I will apologize for that. I have in the past. The Payday community that have been around know that, whether it's the microtransaction scandal of the 2015 or whatever else stupid stuff we've done in the past, completely overkill pack. Yeah, the list goes on. We know how to do good stuff, but when we do bad stuff, we apologize and we correct the track. And the same thing goes for Payday 3 as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's talk a bit more about that future and some other bits around that before we get to some audience questions. So first off, we know that a roadmap now is coming soon. I don't know if there's any specific ETA for it that you can share here, or, I mean, there's a decent chance maybe it could drop this week before this goes out. If it does, then, well, whatever. But to cover our bases, can you talk a little bit about what you hope to accomplish in putting this roadmap out now for fans?
So the purpose of the roadmap is transparency. That is one of the key points that we are working on as a studio. We want to be as transparent as we can with the community on what lies ahead. We've obviously done a lot of work under the hood in the past months during Operation Medic Bag, and the roadmap that you hopefully will see shortly will be our way of saying this is what's coming. Right, because we have been cooking, and I'm super excited to share that with you, because then I'll be able to relatively freely talk about what's coming up. But we have several heists, we have a new character being added to the game, we have a lot more other stuff cooking. But I feel I want to say more, but I can't before the roadmap is out there with the fans and with you, Troy. These months are going to be extremely interesting if you are a Payday fan. And like we spoke about earlier, whether or not you're into Payday 3, have a look, watch from the sidelines. Let us know in comments what you think, whether or not you feel that we're heading in the right direction, or if it's completely done for you. And if you're out, I want to know why. Because my goal, our goal, is to create the best heisting simulator experience that is out there and available to you all. And we're here, we're listening, and I'm super eager to hear your feedback on the roadmap.
Okay, so a couple of specific things with regards to the roadmap, things that we already know going ahead of time. First off, there's a lot of questions coming out about this, and I just want some clarification. The compensation items that we were supposed to get, or correct me if I'm wrong, these were supposed to come out with Boys in Blue, right?
Obviously, the dream scenario for us was to talk about compensation items and give them away straight away, right?
Yeah.
Because then, we talk about it and we give them away straight away. Unfortunately, while the content is ready, like the assets have been made, there are some challenges with implementing them to make sure that the right people get the right items. And that's what we're currently waiting for. It's super unfortunate. I know people got very excited when they saw the stuff. That makes me happy, right? It's just this last part of getting it out the door and giving it to the Payday community. So the only thing I have to say right now, as soon as possible. I'm waiting for more information from our dev team, but as soon as we can, we're going to get them out there.
Sounds good to me. Sounds very good. Cheers. Appreciate that.
No
okay,
worries.
then another thing from what we know before the roadmaps even come out is that there's not going to be an update at all this July. Now, you've talked a little bit about it with the holiday, but I just like your perspective, because you will have people, I kind of feel it myself, the pace has gotten really good with updates. The last couple of months' updates have been really good, and that cadence is a very important thing. So even though, I can fully understand that you guys deserve a break if you're working your asses off, there is the cynic in me who thinks, why wasn't something ready for July? What's going on? Can you just talk a little bit about missing that update slot out for July and impacting the future of the game?
I think it's unfortunate that we don't have an in-game update ready for July. However, we also, sometimes reality comes knocking on our door, right? When we're all working away on making heists and all of this fun stuff. And the reality is that people have lives, The dev team have families, they've got kids, but according to Swedish law, people are they are legally allowed to take vacations during the summer. And we tried to focus on doing crimes digitally, not in the real world. And you know, of course, we would have loved to have a July update. But with everything going on, with the stuff that we are cooking, the best course of action for us was to make sure that we got a great August update and a September update. So while it's unfortunate, I would have loved to see something. Absolutely, of course. I totally hear the Payday community on that. At the same time, looking at it from a different way, it's also a luxury issue for us. The community wants more. That's amazing. 6 months ago, we were not in this position with Payday 3. But right now, we've got a momentum, and I think it's up to us in the community to keep that momentum going for the Land of the Free update, Fear and Greed, and everything else we've got cooking.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Okay then, so talking a bit more beyond September, I know there's probably not too much that you can say, but once DLC 4 has come out in September with Fear and Greed, that's all the currently announced prepaid content that's come out, and realistically everything that we know free-wise that has timelines, it goes up to September. So from October onwards, it's a bit of a grey area at the minute. Now, we know when it was announced there was a co-publisher with Plaion that you had 18 months of support for Payday 3. So in theory, and obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that means currently Payday 3 is due to have support cut off in March of 2025. That may change, obviously, but just as a general question, is there anything you can tell me about the future of Payday 3 beyond September that you're comfortable or able to share right now?
I think one of the worries I saw as part of the discussion this weekend in the Payday community was that people are worried that they're buying into a dying game. Why should I purchase Payday 3 if it's gonna get no support anyway? That's not true. We want to continue working on Payday 3 for years to come. We are working and preparing year 2 right now as well, right? That's something we haven't talked about at all yet. But we're working on it. So the Payday community can feel calm and secure with the fact that there will be more content coming beyond DLC 4 and Fear and Greed. What that content is, I can't talk about that now. But we are cooking. It's not like we're, just waiting to get out the door, kind of. We are cooking. We want to work on this game for years and years on end, right? But in order to do that, again, we need to have the Payday community with us.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Sounds exciting. Sounds good.
It is exciting. I get excited in the discussions we have internally talking about year 2.
Well, I look forward to hearing more of those publicly then. Sounds good to me. Sounds good. Okay, so that sums up the questions I've got. What I've also done is taken some questions both from my community and my Discord and also online via Twitter. As a general bit of blur to people watching, there were about 300 questions, so the chances are your question may not be answered in this. I've tried to incorporate some of the stuff you asked in my questions to begin with. Beyond that, I've picked out the questions that best suit Almir's role as a brand director. Bear in mind, you can confirm this, you're not an actual game developer, you are in charge more of the brand, so I've tried to fit questions that suit you better. In that sense. I
am a game developer, but I'm not in the production team anymore.
Yeah,
I'm part of our publishing team. Yeah, and I have 2 roles at Starbreeze today. One is being head of community, and the other is being the brand director.
Yeah, so I've picked questions that suit more like the ones you've already heard around that topic. For anyone asking specific dev things, I would like to do a specific game developer interview. Stay tuned on that. I'll see if I can put that together. But just bear in mind, if your question doesn't appear, I do apologise. But, Almir, we will start with a few questions that I've got from my Discord community. So the first one now kind of pretty much has been answered in your little speech, but just to reiterate it for people, Cookie Don't wants to know, from the now infamous quote, Almir says players should be supporting Payday 3 right here, right now, so they aren't gambling on whether or not they have a game to come back to. But I would like to know what Almir thinks about the flip side of that. Should players really be expected to support the game if it's still in the air, if they will even have a game later down the line?
Great question. And I think the key word here is support and the definition of that. When I say support, I don't mean automatically that you have to buy the game. When I say support, I mean exactly what we said earlier during this talk, right? Being a part of the Archers community, writing to us on Twitter or X, all of these different things, talking about the game on Reddit, even if it's negative stuff, participate. Again, I want to iterate that. I think there is this idea among some community members that we don't like it when you say something negative. Of course, we want you to say something negative if that is your opinion. If that is your truth and your idea of the situation, that's what we want to hear. And we do not shy away from that. I think there's a lot of other devs out there that go, yeah, I never read what people write on Reddit. It's so negative anyway. Or, yeah, I try to shy away from this or that. Steam reviews, whatever you have it. We don't. We read it all. We try to interact as much as possible. And we want to participate in a truthful arena with the community. And I also want the Payday community to be a place where we can have these serious, heated, emotional debates, discussions, and so on, without anybody feeling that they're going to be censored, banned, kicked out. Almir can't say that, otherwise he's afraid of getting fired. It's not about that. We want to create and curate the best atmosphere, the best arena of discussion that we can together, a forum for you and us to participate in. And that is something that we create together. I don't want the Payday community and the discussions that we have to be like a lawless land, So I think the onus is on us. You're completely right in that. The onus is on us to deliver quality content. But when we do deliver on that quality content, be there for it. That's what I want the Payday community to feel. If you don't want to, let us know why. And I think that's a fair position for me as a dev, someone representing the studio, to have, I want to be able to ask Payday players, what do you think? What do you think? It's so important that we're able to have this conversation the way we do, and that I can talk freely, and that I don't have to mince words and try to be, I shouldn't be honest, I shouldn't be me, because then they'll piss off the Payday community. I think we have an opportunity here within the Payday community to create the best place for us to talk about Payday in a great way, where all of us are happy with the discussion, even though we might not all be happy what's happening in game, happy with how adaptive armor works or whatever else might be the issue right now, But as long as we're here talking to each other about it and have that mutual respect, And that's the thing with the past few days' discussion that makes me sad, is that there are players out there that feel that I don't respect them. I do. I respect all of the Payday heisters, even the ones who hate the game, who will never touch it again, as long as we can have this discussion about it. Because I want to know in those cases, why don't you like the game? Why don't you ever want to come back? And see if there's any way for us to meet halfway.
Yeah, sounds like a very fair trade to me. Thank you for that. Okay, next one then comes from Danny, who has said, what has the team learned from the launch of Payday 3 up until this point to ensure that the mistakes that were made will not be repeated with Starbreeze's next title, Project Baxter, in 2026? Is the team at all concerned about the uphill battle that will have to be fought to make sure people want to support your future projects due to the way Payday 3 released?
Obviously, we all wanted Payday 3 to release in a better way than it did. And we've drawn a lot of learnings since last fall, and are still working on addressing those learnings, right, through Operation Medic Bag. But these learnings, of course, are learnings that the studio as a whole also take in. And our goal with Baxter, just as with Payday, is to make games that you love to play. Fantastic cooperative experiences. And that is our goal, and is our goal still. And I think we drew a lot of learnings. It's difficult for me to pinpoint a specific one that is currently being addressed in Baxter. But everything that's been happening with Payday, of course, is something that all of us try to take learnings from in various different ways.
Then moving straight on, Beast7231 wants to know a little more on the down low. He'd like to know what your thoughts are on the current competition, or friendly competition you might say, with crime boss Rockay City. He's got to have a drink before this one. Ooh.
New adventures await, buddy.
Don't they just?
So listen, I have nothing but love for in-game studios and 505 games. If you are a veteran Payday heister, you know that Payday 2 was published by 505 games. So Crime Boss, Rockay City, and Payday 2 has the same publisher. I know a lot of people over at 505, and I have nothing but love for them. I will say exactly what I said when we were asked a similar question many years ago when the new GTA was coming out and Battlefield Hardline was coming out, and journalists were asking, so these new amazing heist titles are on the way. What do you feel? And I just said, we welcome the competition. We know better than some how difficult it is to make a good heist game. So good luck to them. Godspeed. And that's what I feel about Crime Boss. It's great to see another competitor enter the arena. It is difficult to make a great heist experience, but I wish them all the best, and it's very interesting to see where they'll take off from here. And also, I can take the opportunity to congratulate them on their success. They recently launched a game on Steam. From what I have seen, it's been going really well for them, so good on you. Well done. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Absolutely. I think it'd be nice, I've said this before, to have multiple heisting games. No one loses by having more things to play, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also a misconception some might have, that we don't want to see any competition or anything like that. It's the opposite. Of course we want competition. Competition improves your own skill set, your own ability. They do things right, they do things wrong. We all have an opportunity to learn and make the best heist game we can as a consequence.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, next question comes from Don't Scam, and this plays into a wider criticism that you may have seen in your streams on social media, that the first big update, Boys in Blue, with actual content, some of the biggest parts of that were DLC, and there's been some people who've argued there's not been enough free content. So Don't Scam wants to know, is more frequent free content, such as maps or weapons, planned for the game in the near or further future?
Yes. By the time this video is live, I do believe we will have announced the Mask Mania contest, which will be adding free content to the game. We are working on more free heists, and I think the general sentiment internally at the studio is that we want to give away as much free things as possible. However, there is also the reality of a Payday 3, which means that we only have a set amount of resources that we have to use in order to create heists, characters, paid packs, free packs, and all of that, right? And we try to navigate that landscape to the best of our ability. So know that whenever we release free content, we do our best to make sure that we can release free content as often as possible.
Okay. And the last one, coming from Discord, good way to round off this section, I would say. Sprin wants to know, after 13 years of Rise and Fall for this game and its community, what message could you share with all the people who have stuck with Payday who are listening to this interview now?
Join us for the ride, because this is going to be a roller coaster. Payday 3, up until this point in time, has been a roller coaster. But to be honest, the entire history of Payday as a franchise has been a roller coaster. You know, Troy, having had a front seat for the longest time. Payday has been ups and downs, but the cool thing is that it's been together with the community. And that's again why I want to emphasize that I want you to be on the road with us so we can reach the final destination together, rather than us meeting at the final destination and you asking us, how was the trip? You know, because this journey, the journey to making Payday 3 into the heist experience we all want it to be, that journey is the interesting part. And I would argue the same for Payday 2. Payday 2 wasn't its best version in 2013 or in 2014 or 2015. But at some point, something happened during those post-launch years that just got people more and more excited about Payday 2. And today, it still remains one of the most played games on Steam, which is amazing, you know. And it's also a testament to this community, because I feel that there are few communities out there that have the same vibe and the same activity as the Payday community does. And I want us to retain that, but also elevate that.
All right, so the last section of this interview are questions from Twitter, and there will be some overlaps with what we've seen already, but what I've tried to do with the Twitter side of things, these are wider Payday fans and not necessarily people who are directly linked to my content, and I'm trying to capture different voices, different arguments, and different things people are saying. So there will be some repetition, there'll be some raw sentences, but I think that's the best way for us to get some real live thoughts from the community right now and go through some thoughts. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, go ahead, dude.
Brilliant. So we'll kick off then with a load of guff, who has asked, with the compensation cosmetics and some of the in-game maps originally being part of the microtransaction store, can we safely say that it's actually been altogether cancelled now?
We haven't made any official statement regarding the state of the microtransaction store. Heisters who have been participating in the lead up to Payday 3's launch and the discussions know that there was a microtransaction store in the works. I have no new updates to share regarding it. I obviously know what a large part of the community feels about the idea of a microtransaction store, but I don't have any more details to share as of now. Know that, listen, we want to make you have fun in Payday 3. When you open up Payday 3, we want you to have a great time. I don't want there to be a situation where you open Payday 3 up and there's a microtransaction store that makes you pissed. Then and there, we have already failed, right? If there were to be an opportunity to buy stuff through a store, I only want that to happen if the idea of using said store gives you positive vibes. You know what I mean? Oh, this is a great deal. Oh, this works in an awesome way. Cool. I didn't thought they would do it like that, you know? I'll give a good example of another game that does that great, and that's Helldivers 2, right? When I started testing that game out and I realized how their in-game microtransaction store worked, I was positively surprised, especially also by the reaction and reception in their community, that it's a very fair way to do things. And the short of it, if you don't know how it works, is that you can purchase things for money in the in-game store, but you can also find that currency while you're playing the game in missions. And I thought that was a great way to do it. Will Payday 3 do something that? I don't know. We're not there yet. For me, the microtransaction store is not something that's relevant right now. Right now, Operation Medic Bag is relevant, making sure that we deliver the content that we have sold to our players for the silver and gold edition users out there. Those are my focus points right now. But know that, Heisters, that we want you to have a great time in the game. That's like the ultimate goal. And if any feature that we add into it will help that, then we're looking into that. But I think, enough has been said about what the community thinks about the idea of a microtransaction store. I think, they've made themselves really, really clear on that. But I don't have any hard news to share regarding it as of now.
That's absolutely fair. I would, with it being something that I feel quite strongly about, if I take off my interviewer hat for a second and just share, I think for me personally, and for what a lot of people I think I've seen sharing, I think the problem would be an over monetization situation, because you already have DLCs with Payday 3. If you then add a microtransaction store, it's a little too much, which Helldivers 2 doesn't do. They don't have paid DLCs, they just have that side of things. It's about a balance, right?
So, but you said it yourself right now, right? That if the community feels that they're being over monetized, we're doing something wrong. You loving a game, you wanting to spend money on a game, there are ways to do that, but it just needs to be done right.
Absolutely. Yeah, can't say fairer than that. Okay, Let's move then on to Epinomic Rowan, I think is how I say your name. Are there any future plans or important changes coming soon that are able to be hinted at that haven't yet been shared in blog posts or dev update videos or even in the upcoming roadmap? Anything else you can tease for the future of Payday that may not have been disclosed up to now?
Anything I can tease? I mean, I wish I could tease the coolest stuff that we've got in the pipe. But I think something that's been coming up in questions is collaborations. Are we going to do any? What is it going to be? And I can tell the Payday community that, yes, we're looking into making collabs for Payday 3. What those collabs are, I can't let you know yet. but that is something I'm keen on doing. I know there are team members who are also keen on doing it, and I'm just happy to be able to talk about collabs in a positive light, because in Payday's past, in Payday 2, we did over 30 collaborations. Not all of them were received well, and at some points in Payday 2's lifetime, people were like, no more collabs. So I think that's great, that it feels like there's been a sentiment shift within the community. People are more open to us doing collabs. Right now, we've got the DayZ collab going on with Payday, where you can find Payday masks in DayZ if you play that. But there are a lot more cool stuff in the pipe. So yeah, excited about it, but I can't share more about it right now, unfortunately.
That's fair. Well, I mean, this should be the suits, right, that were designed by, is it Bam Bam? Is that their name? Yeah. The fashion designer? Those should also still be coming soon, right?
Yeah, they will come eventually. I don't have a date for them yet, but they will come.
Okay, all right, fair enough, thank you. Safe State just wants to clarify something detail-wise, something we've already touched on, but just to clarify, as it's something that's been speculated about recently, when did the 18 months of support from Plaion actually begin? The promise that we talked about earlier, the 18 months of content for Payday 3, did it actually start when Payday 3 released, or is it something that took place earlier when marketing began?
It's at release.
Okay.
But again, I mean... these are formalities, right? The truth of the matter is we want to continue working on Payday 3 for a long, long time. That is our truth that we are working with.
And Payday 2 had several termination deadlines that got extended, right? There were certain times it was supposed to end and didn't.
Exactly, and I think that's the nature of any business, any game being made, that you put a time limit where you agree to do something, and then you reconvene and you go, all right, did we achieve what we intended to do, what we set out to do, or didn't we? And then you go, should we continue or shouldn't we? Our goal is to continue making Payday 3 for years to come. That is our ambition, our focus, what the team is pushing for.
Absolutely. Another one then, coming from Bjorn. They've asked, why was Payday 3, a co-op-focused game, being released without so many basic co-op features such as lobby chat, voice chat, and a lobby browser, when co-op gameplay and a living community like Steam groups is the reason the franchise is alive? I think this comment is good in particular because I know you answered a lot of the time with Payday 3's release. There were a lot of features where you talked about these weren't in Payday 2 at launch, so they're not in Payday 3 at launch. Can you talk a bit more about some of those features that maybe, being objective, should have really been in the game at launch but weren't?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think as you try to finish a game for a launch, you make choices. Do we need this for launch, yes or no? And you go, yeah, we need that. And sometimes you go, no, we don't need that. And I think with the case of Payday 3, we learned the hard way that there were a lot of things that the Payday community wanted to have in the game that weren't there. Like VoIP, for example. That is something that we added to Operation Medic Bag, and something that we want to add as soon as we can. And it's so difficult because you have this limited amount of time. You want to add as much as you can as possible. Things happen during production that makes changes to the plan. But I think we can all agree ultimately with the launch of Payday 3, there were a lot of quality of life features, especially that the Payday community was missing, that they had become accustomed to, that we did not realize quick enough. So those are the things that we're looking to amend with Operation Medic Bag and in the continued post-launch of Payday 3. Because everything doesn't end with Operation Medic Bag. Payday 3's post-launch has been active for the past 10 months. We've seen a lot of good stuff during that time. But there's also a lot of stuff left that we have to address, a lot of more features that we need to add to the game. So that's why I'm very keen to underline that we're not there yet, but with Boys in Blue, we start to see the start of the comeback.
Okay, so next one then comes from Bile, my beloved, who asks, where is the momentum? I know there's been a lot to deal with, but the update rate has been so slow. Payday 2 at launch had much more frequent updates, but Payday 3 feels as though the game is maintained by a skeleton crew rather than an entire studio.
Yeah. When we worked on Payday 2 and launched Payday 2, the entire team worked overtime all the time. A dozen of us, because the team was 30 people, 40 people at the time. Around 10, 15 of us developers slept and lived in the studio for half a year. All right? That is not something you want to be the modus operandi, like the status quo situation. That's
Absolutely
not a healthy scenario. So they are world apart in that sense, because when you live and work in the same place, you live and breathe that. So we worked tirelessly day in and day out. So that is one of the reasons why you saw such an incredible output at the time with Payday 2 content, because we were essentially working ourselves out. And I don't want that for my teammates. I don't want the developer culture to be like that. But with Payday 3, because every case is different, right? With Payday 3, we all remember how launch went. Straight away, we went to work preparing for Operation Medic Bag, and then we started to implement those features. So our entire year one got shifted around, which also affected the output that we had initially intended for. Can we reach the same heights of output with Payday 3? Yes, but it has to be under the right circumstances, not trying to overwork your team and things like this. Yeah, so it is the human factor. But Payday 2 could only happen as it did because a lot of the developers lived at the studio. There is no other way to say that.
Yeah, crunch culture, which we obviously don't want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. And I think, putting in again a personal thing, and I'd welcome comments on it, I do think the monthly update cadence is a good one. If that's kept up reliably, which, as we've said, it's unfortunate it can't be for July, but generally speaking, going forward, if that can be kept up, I would like to hope that everyone would agree, or most people would agree, that's a good cadence to have.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree in the Payday community that we want to see as many updates for the game as possible, as frequent as possible. We can all agree to that. Absolutely.
Okay, and we're back. Almir's done his Heist with Almir stream, and we've got a few more Twitter questions to go over. So next up on the list comes from Hyped Panda, and they want to know, if you could redo the release of Payday 3, what would you change in the game and or release process, knowing what you know now?
Offline mode.
Good answer. That's the correct answer.
Need I say more? I mean, having been able to play Payday 3 offline at launch would have helped us immensely at the time of launch. Us hoping and working, I mean, we worked our butts off to make sure that everything worked as intended. It didn't. And not having that fail-safe of people being able to play the game offline really hurt us during the launch period. So, yeah. And there's, of course, a lot of other stuff, but I think that's like the biggest one.
And that's one thing that I would actually add in as a follow-up question. Is there anything you could say about some of the delayed times it takes for updates to come out? I mean, Boys in Blue, as good of an update as it was, that took a long time to come out. Is there anything you can say about, the delays that we get sometimes with the maintenance as a result? Because obviously that feels worse when you can't play the game offline.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think the community understands that after that launch, we had to essentially throw all of our ideas that we had planned for year one out of the door and initiate Operation Medic Bag, which essentially was a completely new plan, right? Where the biggest focal point was us focusing on what do the community want, and that's been our basis. Since it's taking so much time, it's unfortunate, but it's a reality of game dev. With the things that we've had in the pipeline so far with Payday 3, we couldn't release the things that we're currently releasing earlier than we could.
Right. Yeah.
I also think, let's say hypothetically, if we were to release Boys in Blue in February, that would rub the community the completely wrong way, I think. It was not the time to introduce more paid content or whatever. People wanted to see, what are you doing to resolve the major issues that we have with the game? And I hopefully believe that is what the community is feeling now, that we are addressing those things.
Yeah. But specifically when it comes to update release days and you have those big long maintenance windows and sometimes they get extended, is there anything you can say about that and the some of the trouble that causes?
Yeah, it's of course not a situation we want to be in, where we have the game go offline for 8 hours, for example. We will lower those maintenance windows in the future. Of course, we're not at a place where we want to be with that, but time will tell if we get there. I think with each and every update, we're seeing progress with the game. Also, when it comes to us fixing things in the game. But the maintenance windows, as of now, hopefully they'll be reduced to as short of a window as possible. But yeah, we'll take it one update at a time for the time being.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay then, Pyro Video has much more of a blunt question for you. They want to know, does Almir really think the game is going to survive the next 5 years or even next 2 with the current way and sentiment the community has regarding feedback and feelings towards the game?
Payday 3 will live on for years as long as we have the community support. That's why I made the call to action last week to the Payday community. That's why we as a team have been working on Operation Medic Bag, essentially setting ourselves up for success rather than for failure for the coming months and years. So that's why things have been taking time, but I really do believe something happened with Payday 3, didn't it, over the past months? I know you, Troy, you weren't playing for a time and then you came back into the game, and especially with Boys in Blue, it just feels as you're playing that there's something that has improved. It's difficult to say exactly what it was, but it's just like the moment-to-moment action in Payday 3 has become better. And I'm sure it's just going to continue going like that with the upcoming updates that we do.
Definitely, yeah. I think, and that's the advantage, as I said, about some of the updates earlier this year. You know, they added some things which to people who were already playing a lot or were invested were like, well, this isn't a huge thing, it's not going to bring me back. But by the time people do come back, as I felt myself personally, I came back properly with the progression update. You see everything in tandem executed together and you go, oh, there is a big step up, and it was the progression that did it for me. Boys in Blue made it a lot better, but just being able to level up more reliably helped me personally quite a lot. I'm a big fan of good progression systems in games. And I think it's much better now than it was at launch, for sure. Okay, then. Will Golden has a question for you. Not sure if Almir can answer this one, but would help a bit with a better understanding of game development. What might be the biggest issues that cause development to slow down? While creating new content should never be rushed, features like an unready button should have ideally been a day one fix rather than taking several months to implement.
Yes, but again, context is everything here. An unready button seemingly is a relatively easy thing to implement, but we had so many bigger issues at the time than an unready button. You not being able to log into the game you purchased is one thing, right? And unfortunately, it took longer than we wanted. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, our inability to add the unready button faster than we did just shows how big of a situation we were in at the time of launch, having to fix everything in order to make sure that the game could work as intended. So yeah, it just says more of the other issues at hand at the time than the unready button itself as a feature. Because I agree, it's a relatively simple feature. It should have been there at launch, but the same can have been said about many features that still aren't in Payday 3, but are things that we're looking to add.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that ties in fairly well with the next question then about prioritizing and you develop a team. MM has asked, with the troublesome launch, how come the team has been split between Payday 3 and Project Baxter? Wouldn't it make more sense to have everybody on board trying to save your cash cow in Payday 3?
I understand where this heister is coming from. At the same time, Starbreeze is not a one-game studio. Payday is one of the games that we are working on, Baxter being another, and so on. And we need to divest our resources as a studio. However, my job as the head of community for Payday is to make sure that we use as much resources as we possibly can to make Payday 3 a success, and that we focus on the right things. And what I mean by saying the right things is exactly what I'm reading in chat every day I stream, or when I'm in forums and so on. So I do my part in the dev team of being your champion in the community, trying to voice your biggest concerns or your biggest wants, essentially.
So to him, you would say you think there's a good balance right now between people working on different games in the studio?
Yes. However, the size of the team in the future is partly correlated to how big of the community it is at that point in time. The same thing went with the Payday 2. We could have added more devs, but at some point you go, all right, do we need more devs, or do we just need to shift our focus on what we're adding? So yeah, if you ask me personally, I would love to just throw people at a project, you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
More people being thrown into a project doesn't necessarily mean that they're more effective or that the output is better. So we of course want to do more Payday. We want to do more Payday. Whether or not it's less people, more people on the project, we want more content into the game.
Right, again, that's a really good segue, because Jay wants to know, as a Payday fan, why right now should someone choose to play Payday 3 instead of Payday 2?
Because they want to be a part of the journey, right? Payday 2 will exist and continue to exist, but Payday 3 is the game we are working on right now. And we want you in the community to be with us on the thing we're working on right now. You might not want to buy into Payday 3 because you feel we haven't fixed all of the things that matter to you, but you can at least participate on streams, in your community, Red, or wherever else, being a part of the community. And let us know that when we do something good, you like it. You might not be ready to jump in yet, but you like it, That means more than you maybe think it does.
Yeah, it makes sense for Payday 3 to be a focus. It does tie in to something else I wanted to ask, though, that's come up. I know one of our fellow Starbreeze partners, Sea-Dog, has been talking a lot about this. Her community in particular, because she plays a lot of Payday 2 still, possibly more than a lot of the other partners. There are a lot of bugs and issues with Payday 2, especially still as a consequence of Update 237 and the matchmaking changes that have not been addressed, or even in the last patch there were things that had changed that had not been explained. Is it at all Starbreeze's plan at any point to go back and fix some of the things in Payday 2, not to add new content, but just so it's in a slightly better state and fixes some of the problems that have persisted while Payday 3 has been in the problem state that it's in, and people have gone back to Payday 2 and found these things out?
We're aware of the issues. We're discussing them internally and seeing what we can do, what we can't do. So we'll see where we'll get with that, but I'm sure as soon as we're ready, we'll communicate that to the Payday 2 community. But I'm aware of those issues, and it's unfortunate that those issues persist. We'll have to look into it, is my opinion. But we'll see exactly how and when.
Okay, sounds good. Coming to the last few questions then. Benjamin Scub wants to know, why exactly were so many of the questionable release decisions made and stuck with, despite clear negative community response before launch, such as there not being an offline mode, challenge-based progression, metered weapon statistics, armor, health changes, etc. from Payday 2, things like the circle objectives being a specific example. So why were things not changed or addressed in that window between people getting their hands on it and talking about it and the full global release?
Yeah, a great question. It's difficult to say exactly why, what, and when, but there was a ton of feedback from the community regarding various parts of the game leading up to launch. Some things we might have been able to mitigate better than we did. Some things we couldn't change at the time. Because this part of game development is very much a business part. We had a release date planned. There are a lot of things that need to align to make sure that happens. But I think that the sentiment here ultimately is that the game was launched with a lot of features that were expected by the community that were missing. That is what Operation Medic Bag is all about, trying to address those concerns. Do I wish we had acted differently? Of course. But do I lose sleep over that? I can't, because that would detract from our focus on what we need to address. We are trying our best to focus on what we can change in the here and now, rather than going back, looking at launch, going like, losing ourselves in that, essentially. I think it's very important that we do what we can with what we have right now going forward. And I think players who left the game at launch will be happy what we are cooking, hopefully. But if you look at the things that we have in Operation Medibag, I think when all of those things are said and done and they're complete, we will have addressed a lot of concerns that people had leading up to the launch of Payday. But again, do I wish that things were different at launch? Of course. Last summer when I said, the servers won't go down, hopefully. I was told at the time, we were told, yeah, we're set up, we're doing our tests, we had the beta, etc., things were looking good. How could we expect anything else? And then, Murphy's Law entered the room and nobody could play the game for a substantial amount of time. And that was a wake-up call for us.
All right then, Ogilvan, I think is how I say your name. Next one. Is Starbreeze able and willing to keep content rolling for Payday 3 should Plaion decide that they don't want to move forward with the game anymore? Plaion being, for people who are out of the picture, the publisher for Payday 3.
We have a great relationship with Plaion and Deep Silver, and both parties, them and us, want to continue working on Payday 3 for a long, long time. It's difficult for me to speculate, if this thing would happen, if that thing would happen. Yeah, we'd have to deal with it. But since Payday is our IP, of course we want to see it flourish and continue for as long as possible.
And that's what I would hope that everyone else would want. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And the last one is a more general thing, not necessarily Payday 3 based, but it's something that, to be fair, I'd like an answer on as well. Gage would like to know, is there any update as to when the next dose of live-action Payday content could be coming?
So it's a definition question, live-action content. I mean, the Dragon files we've been doing is live-action content, albeit much smaller in scope than Follow the Money, the live-action trailer we did leading up to launch. I think it's important for players in the community to understand as well that making a trailer like Follow the Money, a several-minute-long live-action featuring several actors, camera crews, a script that has been written beforehand, all of these things, it takes a lot of time to put that together. It's essentially like making a small movie, Even instead of making 90 minutes or 200 minutes or whatever long worth of a movie, you're making these 3-4 minutes trying to really matter. So it's a big endeavor making live action is what I'm trying to say. But we love doing them. That's why we did it leading up to launch. It's part of Payday's legacy, and I'd love for us to do them again. But beyond the Dragon files, I don't have anything more to share right now.
But there is still the live-action adaptation that's supposedly in the works in conjunction with Stockholm Syndrome, correct?
Indeed, we are looking to make a movie or a TV show based on the Payday franchise, absolutely. But we have no new details as of now.
Well, that comes to an end of all the list of the questions that I've pulled from Twitter. So just to wrap up, to hand back to you, have you got any final things you'd like to say for the audience about Payday 3, the status of Payday as a franchise, any closing comments you'd like to give?
We're alive. We're kicking. Super happy to see the positive sentiment regarding Boys in Blue. It's the start of our comeback. I hope the Payday community will be with us to see this year out. I mean, year one is being wrapped up, right? We're already out with DLC 2, DLC 3, DLC 4. The remaining chapters of year one are coming up. What we've been cooking behind the scenes for year 2 excites me to the core. I cannot say that enough. And if anything, the last thing I'd like to say is there is no Payday without the community. That is a fact. There is no Payday without the community. So thank you for being part of that. Thank you, Troy, for being part of that, for continuing to be a part of that. Thank you to all the heisters out there who watch this video, who discuss Payday, who play Payday, whether it's Payday the Heist, Payday 2, or Payday 3. I have nothing but love for you all, and I look forward to seeing you in Payday 3, in Payday 2, or in Payday the Heist, whichever you prefer to play. I'm happy for you to be a heister and to be a part of this community. So thank you, and keep those helmets flying. And you don't want to miss out on the coming months. I'm sure with the little insight you have read, I remember you saying that you had seen the roadmap but had forgotten to screenshot it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember the excitement at the time. We are cooking. The coming months are going to be extremely exciting. I want you to be there for it, community. whether it's on the sidelines being opinionated about what you're seeing drop, or being in the action with us, because ultimately the action is the juice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Almir. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone who asked questions as well. It's been good to try and get some community sentiment towards the game right now and get your take on it, so I appreciate that greatly, Almir. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what comes out in year one, and who knows, maybe we can reconvene in the future and hopefully Payday 3 will be an even better situation than it is now.
Yeah, I would hope we do, right? Why make this into a yearly thing when there are so many days in a year? So absolutely looking forward to that.
Well, the door's open for you whenever you want to come back.
Excellent.
But thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for watching. If you've enjoyed the interview, make sure you click the like button, stay up to date with all the future content, and get this thing out the algorithm. And if you haven't already subscribed, please make sure that you do so. Thank you once again, Almir, for being here, and we'll see you all very soon.